Good evening and welcome. If you have the courage to do so, please like, share, and subscribe to my YouTube channel, but especially share it, because if you do that, I argue that within 2 years you can say with much confidence that we are a government of, by, and for the people. Truth is the power to convict or condemn. Go to my webpage, fightfordecency.com, and you'll see what I mean by that. In the meantime, having said that, I want to talk to you tonight about President Kennedy. John F. Kennedy gave, on YouTube, you could type in John F. Kennedy's final speech to the United Nations General Assembly. And in that speech, he talks about cooperation, peace, and nuclear proliferation, and how it is that he's a peace candidate. You know, he's a peace president. You know, we have a president right now who I personally believe is a moron, and on top of that is a fascist. Now, I know I'm hurting the feelings of a lot of MAGA people out there, or right-wing Christian nationalists, and I'm sorry. You know, I don't mean to be disrespectful. I'm just telling you, this is my opinion, and I think that the facts bear that out. And if you don't see that, then, you know, maybe you shouldn't continue watching this video. But I urge you to do so, because I'm actually on your side, in the sense that you believe that Trump is going to set the record straight and bring about peace and do all these great things. And I'm starting to doubt my argument a little bit, because he's really, in my opinion, has really gone off the deep end. I mean, putting the military out on the streets of Chicago and arresting people that have brown skin, and, you know, racial profiling, that's 1933 all over again. Not only in Germany, it's here in the United States, you know. I mean, what kind of country, what kind of president does that sort of thing, you know? JFK was something else. Did you know that there are monuments around the world of that president? Because he truly was the peace president. He truly did care about the people here in America and around the world. He truly, really did want peace, and he fought for it. You know, how far we have gone, how far astray we have gone, you know, since then to now. I mean, the president we had before could barely speak. His mental faculties weren't all there. And today we have a complete moron. You know, so we all know that we didn't put these people in office. We, average, everyday people, yeah, sure, we went to the voting booth and we voted, but it wasn't really our vote, was it? It wasn't really our choice, was it? I mean, you do understand there are 2 elections in America. The first one is with the money primary, where wealthy oligarchs, bankers, and corporations pool their money together and say, I like this person. I think this person, you know, is going to, you know, preside over America and pass laws and push laws that favor me, what I call unholy trinity. And after they get done, then they say, okay, we found our candidates, now it's your turn. You can vote for who we picked first. That's not a democracy. And of course, don't tell me that we're not a democracy. I know we're not a democracy. We're a democratically elected republic. In other words, but the democratically elected part is what's missing here. And the reason why we're going through such turmoil here in America and around the world is for that very fact, that we, average, everyday people, don't elect our representatives. Rich people do, and rich people have an idea of how this country should be run and how the world should be run. And that idea has a name, and that name is called neoliberalism. Now, if you don't know what that is, on my webpage, I give a 5-part video series on what that is, and it gets into the history, where it started, and what its ideas are. It's very important you understand that, because that is what we're fighting against. That is what gave power to Biden to Trump to Bush to Obama. I believe it was when Kennedy was the president where we actually did have it wasn't so corrupt. It was corrupt, of course, but it wasn't that corrupt, where we actually felt like our vote counted, and we really did. We were able to vote in that person. But since then, after they killed Kennedy, after they assassinated him, the deep state, what I call the unholy trinity, has taken over. And it's running our country, and it's running the whole world. It's a shame, isn't it? It's a shame. It's downright disgusting. There's a whole bunch of boats that went to Italy. Rather to Israel, to break the barricade, to give aid to the Palestinians. And they weren't able to go through. There was a few ships that did go through, but in the end, Israel broke international law and kidnapped people in the boats. There were warships, I understand, from Turkey and from Italy and from Spain maybe, that went with them, from my understanding. And then when it came down to battle and fight for these people, they turned around and they said, no, we're not going to engage. We're not going to have a kinetic war over Israelites, intercepting the peace flotilla. Now, it's my understanding that the Italians were up in arms about that. They said, wait a minute, what's going on here? We're supposed to give aid to the to the Israelites, right? So what did they do? They went to the streets, and they had a nationwide general strike on the ports. They said the people in Italy are all up in arms, all generals, a general strike throughout the nation, and shutting down the ports and saying that if this ship is going to Israel, you're not going to leave this port. And that's the whole nation fighting. And I think about that sort of thing, and I say a whole nation is up in arms about that and fighting against that. And that's right. It's right. The Palestinians shouldn't be in this situation. It's indecent. It's inhumane. It's despicable. What are we doing here in America? We go to work every day, and we understand what's going on. We're not plugging our ears. We know what's going on, but how are we fighting back? And I know there are a lot of people protesting. A lot of people across America. They're protesting, saying, no, you can't do this. This isn't right. And God bless you if you're one of those that feel that way and are protesting or active politically and are saying or doing what you can. That's great, that you're doing that, but right? And I have an argument. You see, I think that we could really, really overcome this indecency, the genocide in Israel, the war in Ukraine, the war with China, the killing people here in America because they don't have the money to pay for their health care. Families living together because they cannot afford their own house because Blackstone has bought it all up and turned around and renting it to us at a higher rate. Inflation going up because this moron thought that he could, enact tariffs around the world, not knowing that in order to do that, you have to have a manufacturing base. You see, I'm no expert on this sort of thing, right? I watch a lot of YouTube. I read books. There's a few people I follow, and by the way, those people are GVS. There's a woman, Anheuser or something like that. I forgot. It's like a German name. I watch also Andre von Mark, VONDEMARK, Andre, ANDREA. These two people give me my information about geopolitics and, of course, geopolitical economy with Ben Norton and Radhika Desai, Michael Hudson. These people are really informative. They inform me on what's really going on. around the world, geopolitically wise. But here in America, you got status quo, you got, quite a few people that are talking about what's going on. Jimmy Dore, The thing is that we know what's going on, and I know that you're out there protesting. I know you're doing the best you can, but I have an argument. My argument says that if you really, truly care, not that you care, of course you care, but if you really, really want to stop this indecency, you as an individual have the power to do it. You really, truly do. And if you stop and think about it, it really, truly benefits you. It's just like a side benefit. It's like a side, what do you call that? I don't know, there's a word for this, where you get benefit for doing something, right? Not only are you going to stop the wars and this indecency going on, but you're also going to help your pocketbook. This is the way I envision it, okay? This is the way, in my mind, this is how this strategy is going to work. Some people call it a general strike. I think it's more of a sabbatical, where we're telling those in power, and we're not talking about the mouthpieces that are representing, that are in our Congress, the Senate, and the President that represents rich people. I'm talking about the rich people. I'm talking about these people who really are controlling the levers of power, telling those people, the so-called elected officials, what to do. This is how we overcome. We tell them that we are going to shut this whole country down and not work for 2 whole months. Now listen carefully. There's one thing the unholy Trinity fears the most, in my opinion. And that one thing is that you and I take the time to talk. That is it right there. It's not even the stopping of labor. It's not even, a strike for a week or 2 weeks, a month or 2 months. That's not really it. What they really fear the most is that we take the time to talk. And the reason for this is because when we stop working and take time to sit down and debate, to talk to one another, to come to an understanding of what has happened over the last 45 years, and how that we could have a better world here in America, and the fact that we exported this indecency around the world, which is called neoliberalism. When we do that, we can come up with some pretty good ideas on how, with power, fight back. And one of the ideas that I am promoting is that when we got it backwards. So a lot of people are saying, and for good reason, right? These are smart people, educated people. Tad Sturmer, for example. Steve Grumbine, who is an expert on modern monetary theory. These people understand, what is it, this lady with, I forget her name, Elizabeth McLaughlin, with the organization is the Ripple Effect, that's right. All these people say that we need to organize in order to be prepared to fight back. And you know what? I'm not disagreeing with that. Of course we need to organize. I'm just saying that just because it hasn't happened in history before doesn't mean that it can't happen right now. And what am I talking about? I'm talking about stopping work and taking time to talk. That comes first. As you're talking, then you organize, right? You organize then. At that point you organize. And all those people that are fighting, all those people that are organized already and have an idea and have a following, we come together and we build coalitions and we come up with ideas. And my idea is that if I'm not going to be able to pay my rent or my mortgage if you're renting or you're buying a house for 2 months, because how many people have 2 months worth of savings in their account to pay their mortgage, to pay their rent? Hardly anybody, right? A large percentage of people are living paycheck to paycheck. This is the way I see it happening. You wear the red and white on your body, put red and white streamers on your vehicle, and you drive down the road, and if they don't give us, those in power don't give us 2 things. Number 1, to read and reintroduce and pass the Citizens Equality Act of 2017, written by Lawrence Lessig, and also a mere vote on universal health care. If you don't give us those two things on Labor Day 2027, all the truck drivers across America, whether you're an owner or operator, company driver, leasing your truck, whatever, right, are going to shut the truck down, not for a week until you give it, but for 2 whole months. We're going to shut the whole country down. And during those 2 months, we're not going to be able to pay our rent or our mortgage. And we will come to a decision, to an understanding that we're going to extend that for another 4 months. So that for 6 months, we will not pay our rent or our mortgage. And after, when we go back to work after 2 months, right? We go back to work, we're still not going to pay our rent or our mortgage for a total of 6 months. And by then, we'll have another understanding. Maybe we'll do it all over again. Do you understand how powerful that is? Do you understand how really, truly powerful that is? And all you have to do is be seen. Wear the red and white. And tell your neighbor, I am fighting for my country, to rid ourselves of a corrupt electoral system that has enabled this neoliberal idea to flourish here in America to the point that we are now a fascist state, and that we exported it around the world and causing misery. You and I, we are doing this. We have to be held accountable for this. And I know that if you're protesting, you can feel and sleep better at night. You know, you said, hey, I was out there by my sign. I protested. You can't look at me. No, I can't. No, I can't. But if you're really serious, if you really, truly want to stop this, you have the power. You who hold up the protest sign, you who have the ballot initiatives, you who start this, the organizing in the local community and in the state, and then hopefully the federal, maybe take 10 years, 20 years to accomplish this. We can do it within 2 years. And all that is necessary is the very threat, because it's my opinion, and I argue that it'll never happen. Why? Because everybody in the country will understand what neoliberalism is. See, that's part of the problem. They don't understand what it is. They don't understand what we're up against. And they don't understand that there's an alternative way to run an economy, through a better understanding of how modern money works, through the insights of modern monetary theory. See, it's really not hard. How can I convince you? And I'll close with this. It is to your benefit that you do this, because if in fact they do make us go 2 months without paying our rent or our mortgage, what are we going to do with that money? We're not going to get paid for 2 months. But when we go back to work, we're going to go 4 months getting an income, and we will not pay our rent. We will not pay our mortgage. And how does that happen? If you live in an apartment complex, you put the red and white streamer, red and white ribbons around your doorknob, and you knock on your neighbor's door and you say, are you with me? Are you with me? If you live in a neighborhood, like the deer, the Huntington's Deer Estate, and there's 300 houses in this neighborhood, and you have your red and white ribbon on your door, and you're knocking on doors, and you're telling them, are you with me? Are you with me? That's how we do it. We go from neighborhood to neighborhood, from apartment complex to apartment complex. We're organized. You see? It's not hard, really. You don't have to. We don't have to have all the pieces together. That comes when we're shut down for 2 months. That's when that happens. But it'll never happen, because the unholy Trinity will not allow a whole nation to sit idle for 2 whole months. They'll never let it happen. They'll give in. They'll have to give in. And what is the best about this whole thing is that you as an individual in America will understand clearly, will have a clear understanding of what truly we're fighting. That's the best part of it all. If anything, this is the most important part. that we understand what we're fighting. And when it comes to spiritual matters, this is why I believe it's a sabbatical, not a general strike, because you're going to sit home, you're going to talk to one another, you're going to debate, you're going to pray, and you're going to understand that what you're really fighting is the individual and his right to profit, or am I my brother's keeper? I have a responsibility to my brother, my neighbor who lives next door, to my community, to my city, to my country. The unholy Trinity only thinks about themselves. They don't have a house. They don't have a nation. They don't have neighbors. They only have themselves and their riches. Fight with me. Fight for decency. Share this video and share this understanding. People wear purple to say that I'm not left or I'm not right. I argue wear red and white. Give it to the Republicans. Give it to those people that believe that Trump is their savior. Fine. You win. Because I think that Trump is more interested in how he looks than he is anything else. And wouldn't you know, don't you know that Trump would do that in a New York Minute? To say that I'm up there with FDR, I told the rich people to take a flying hike, and I'll go down history as the president that gave the people their country back. You who voted for Trump will be vindicated. We who believe he's a complete moron and a fascist will say, that's what we thought. That's what we thought. And we were right. And if it's not Trump, then it'll be the next one. But now's the time. Fight with me. Fight with me. Fight for decency.